Good morning, everybody. It's Chris here at Blue Rhino Safaris. I thought I would do a quick video for you guys because you haven't heard of me for a while, and I don't want you to think that I've dropped off the edge of the earth. So to show you this, there's the earth. I'm still on it. I'm down here somewhere. And I thought, let me give you an update on where we are with our tours, what is going to happen. And while I was thinking of that, I thought, let me do something about borders and the modern map versus the older maps. Just something quick that's quite interesting. So first of all, with regards to the lockdowns and the virus issues, I think we are probably going to have this virus for us for the next year, still until the end of the year at least. And we will have various stages of movement that is allowed during this period. But you have to be aware that if the South African government decides that we are going out of lockdown, then to cross a border into Botswana or Zimbabwe would mean that their country has to lift their lockdowns as well. Now, I'm aware that Zimbabwe has recently lifted the lockdown or moved it down to level 2 or something, so movement in Zimbabwe is easier. But keep that in mind. If South Africa says we can now travel, we have to check all the countries that we're going to travel in to make sure that the regulations allows us to travel. The second thing I wanted to mention is make a note of it, that there's a difference between having a lockdown and a state of emergency or a state of anything else declared. When a government of a country declares a state of emergency, for example, it is a constitutional thing where certain rights and laws come into effect, and the president suddenly has more power than he had before. So I know Botswana has mentioned that they wanted to extend the state of emergency to 6 months, and it doesn't mean they're going to be in lockdown for 6 months. It only means that they have a state of emergency, which means typically that the military are allowed to be used for certain functions, and also that the president has more power to quickly make changes in the country. So state of emergency doesn't really affect you on the lockdown level, it affects you on the government powers level. So if you hear that Botswana is extending lockdown to 6 months, it's not the lockdown, it is a state of emergency that they are looking to extend. And as I say, normally your military is not allowed to operate in your country unless there's a state of emergency declared. So it's sort of part of the procedure is to declare the state of emergency to unlock the powers that is required to get more government officials on the ground to help with public unrest or whatever the case may be. So that is what a state of emergency would mean. So let's have a look at the borders quickly. If you're interested in just a little bit of the history of our Southern African region, stick around and we're going to chat about borders. The tours I'll update on my website, so you can have a look on the website. The latest information is in there. For the guys going out on tours to Kgalagadi now in July, and also Botswana in July, I will contact you directly and we'll chat about what we're doing. We're going to start our preparation in the next 2 weeks or so, and by then we'll have a better idea of where this thing is going. If you know how to use Zoom, then I will be doing Zoom meetings fairly shortly, and what this will be for the preparation guys. So if you booked on a tour and I will call a Zoom meeting, and everybody booked on that tour will be invited, and we can then chat through the preparation. So the guys going out in July for Kgalagadi and Botswana, I'll invite you to a Zoom meeting. If you have Zoom, then you can join in. If you don't, you can just do the normal thing and read the documents. Everything is there. You can phone me, contact me if you have a question. Otherwise, the Zoom meeting, I will go through the documentation and just make sure that you are aware of the important things to think of. Zoom is not a difficult thing. You download it from the internet. It's a little bit of software that you load onto your computer, and you can then join a Zoom meeting. It costs you nothing to join a meeting when I invite you. So if you don't have Zoom, get it on your computer, play around with it a little bit, and we will do that for preparation. I think I'll probably do that going forward as well, because it is a clever way of going through the preparation requirements, what's required for your vehicles, your food, and what the border issues are, your documentation. So we can talk through that, you can ask your questions, and we can cover the preparation documents that's on the internet already, but we can cover that in a meeting. So let's quickly chat about the borders. The Southern African area that you see here is what we are familiar with. We know the South African border looks like this. We know Botswana sits there with the delta at the top, Namibia is on the left, Zimbabwe is out here. But when we talk about borders, it really is when the European countries ultimately decided to divide their territorial areas, and they started drawing in the little bits of borders. So this is one of the older maps that I found on the internet, and if you look at the map, it's not very clear. Cape Colony and Natal, then you will see the older South Africa. This is in the 1800s, and the Cape Colony was basically defined as the people that live in the Cape, and the northern border for the Cape Colony was the Orange River. Now, if you drive in South Africa today, you'll realize that the Orange River flows through the middle of South Africa. So traditionally, that has been the border for the Cape Colony. Everything north of the Orange River was not Cape Colony, not British. Griqualand West, the Orange River, well, the Free State, the Orange Free State, Basutoland, the Kai River down here with the Transkei and the Ciskei area, that was all non-Cape. So the Cape really was just this Cape Colony area. Natal itself was also up to the Tugela River. North of the Tugela was the Zulus, so that was Zululand. South of the Tugela, we had Natal up down, or all the way down to the Transkei area. So that was Natal. Now, if you moved across the Orange River, like in the Great Trek of the Boers, then you left the Cape Colony. You didn't really go into anything else because there wasn't really anything else, but you left the Cape Colony. And then if you carried on further, this Orange River or the Free State area was fairly unmanaged for a large part. And then if you carried on, then you got to the Vaal River. And if you crossed the Vaal, you were in the Transvaal. Trans means on the other side. So you're on the other side of the Vaal River. So the Transvaal were across the river from the Free State. And that is very much how things happened in the Livingstone days, for example, mid-1800s. You get to a river, it's a border, and if you cross, then you're in an area that's either uninhabited or not. If you look to the left, which is Botswana currently, you'll see it just says Kalahari Desert, because that is just desert. And if you look closely, you'll see the Orange River that runs over here. The northern part of this, which is Kalahari Desert, has Griqualand West in there, but north of that is Bechuanaland. It's not shown on this map, but that is Bechuanaland. And if you go into Bechuanaland, you'll see that would include places like Mafikeng and Vryburg and Kuruman. Those were all Bechuanaland. That was not part of the Cape Colony. It wasn't part of the Transvaal. It wasn't part of the Free State. It was part of Bechuanaland. And that means that if the map was drawn when the Union of South Africa was created, then it would look very different than the one that we, or was drawn in a different way. It would look very different than the one that we know today. So Botswana would have been further down, but they called it Southern Bechuanaland and Northern Bechuanaland, and the Molopo River is basically the border on that one. So when Livingstone came around and he visited the king of the Tswanas, he was basically meeting up with the Tswanas already when he got to Kuruman, because that was already in Bechuanaland. So today, if you drive to Kuruman and you think, oh, Livingstone used to stay here, he was married to Moffat's daughter, and Kuruman was sort of his spot. It wasn't in the Northern Cape or in the Northwest Province or wherever it is. It was actually in Bechuanaland, which was British protectorate area. So it's very interesting. Another thing that's interesting, so the Transvaal, Transkei, those all refers to the other side of something, trans. Something that I always ask guys, and if you come on my Lesotho trips or any of my other trips and we talk about boundaries and rivers, Do you know where the Orange River gets its name? That's always the question I ask. And people think of the Orange River as a color. The river might have orange color to it, or maybe it's because it runs past the Orange Free State. So everything orange that you see in the Southern African area, the Orange Free State, the Orange River, it's actually wrong. It's not orange, it's oranje. And it's translated as a color, and that's why people think of it as a color, but it's not a color. Oranje refers to the House of Oranje, which is the Dutch house, the king's house in Holland, or in the Netherlands. And when Van Riebeeck came down here, they named certain things after their royal house, which is the House of Oranje. And that's why the colors of the Dutch are also orange, oranje. So the river's name is actually the Oranje River, referring to the royal house of the Dutch. And it's not the color, so it's not orange. So I think, in my opinion, it's incorrectly translated into orange, because it's not the Orange River, it's the Oranje River. The same with the Orange Free State. It is the Oranje Vrystaat. So it refers to the royal house of the Dutch. So that's just an interesting little tidbit for you on this Wednesday morning. So where does the Orange River get its name? It got an interesting history. Let me just interrupt myself on that. The Orange River, of course, originates in Lesotho, and in Lesotho it's called the Senqu River. So it depends on which country you are, what the river would be called. I see the name is different when you get to the Graabies Falls these days. So who knows what the name will be eventually. Something else that's interesting, if you look at the Kimberley area, so many people say that when the British declared the territory, that the Kimberley Diamond Fields was actually stolen from the Boers, and it should have been in the Transvaal land, because remember Paul Kruger was the president of the Transvaal, and he laid claim to a large extent on the Kimberley minefields, because he said it's part of Boer territory. So if you look on Google Maps, then you will see the Orange River, which is here on the left, and the Vaal River that comes in from the top. So they meet round about at Douglas, and if you zoom out just a little bit, you'll see that Kimberley sits around here. Now, Transvaal means other side of the Vaal, so the Vaal River is there. The Transvaal is on the other side of the Vaal River, so Kimberley is not in the Transvaal territory. Kimberley also doesn't fall in the Vaal River, in the Orange River territory, the British, because the Orange River sits down here. So Kimberley sits right in between the Vaal River that's at the top and the Orange River that's at the bottom. So this thing of laying claim to the Kimberley area, if you go back slightly further, then you'll see the Orange Free State sits over here in the Bloemfontein area. So Kimberley wasn't no man's land, but the three main powers that was around, the Transvaal, the Free State Farmer area, and the Cape Colony, it was in none of their areas. The area was actually the Griqualand West area, and I think it was Winterboer, the leader, that had the territory. So when the dispute arose, they ultimately went to him and said, all right, so we know there's diamonds there, and we want to claim the area for our colony or for our republic. How do we do this? And he said, well, I think I'm more aligned with the British, because they've been giving me better protection against the farmers that's been in conflict with my people. So he considered himself part of the British colony. So Griqualand West then ultimately formed part of the British colony, and Kimberley, which is in the Griqualand West area, ultimately fell into the Cape Colony. So there was no real claim from the Boers in Transvaal under Kruger, because they were on the other side of the Vaal. Kimberley's not there. And there was no real claim by the British, because they were on the south of the Orange River, and that was the end of their territory. Modern day, it should have been in the Free State. But the Free State wasn't really big on Kimberley at that time. It was just a barren stretch of land. So it really fell onto the Griqualand West area, and that was a cultural territory, and the chief said he was closely related to the British. So that's just something interesting about the Orange River and Kimberley and things like that. When we're on our trips, we chat about these things as we go. History has brought us where we are, so history is very interesting in that sense. Things are not just the way they are because they are. There's a story behind every rock that is moved. So if you're looking to join a trip, please keep me informed. I'm making the lists of people that want to do what, and as the dates get confirmed as we go forward, I'm slotting people into trips as they want to do them. We have to work our way through this thing. It's not just going to go away, but we will get through it. So hang in there, wear your mask, wash your hands, keep yourself healthy. The best way for us to fight this thing is for each person to take responsibility for himself. If you can do that, then you're cutting out 75% of the infections. The other 25% that don't get it or don't care, that's fine. They will come around at some point. So stay safe, and we'll chat again. Cheers.